Now move on to Senate Bill 632, Senator Quarterman.
All right, thank you, Chair Smith, Vice Chair Wall Striker, members of the Judicial Proceedings Committee. For the record, Senator Paul Quarterman, District 2, Washington and Frederick counties. Thank you for the opportunity today to present Senate Bill 632, Peace Orders, Visual Surveillance. Senate Bill 632 will authorize a person to petition for a peace order and to be heard in court on the grounds that the respondent is conducting unwanted visual surveillance of an area of a residence where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy. If the petitioner meets their burden in court, the judge would then be able to issue an order to the respondent ordering them to refrain from committing the acts complained of the petition. In the spring of 2023, our office was contacted by a constituent with concerns regarding a disturbing pattern of behavior being exhibited by their neighbor, who had recently moved in behind them about 4 months earlier. The neighbor had placed about 12 cameras in an aggressive manner right along the property line, some of which are pointed directly into the constituent's backyard, where their two minor-aged girls tend to their barn and into their yard and play. An area that you would reasonably think there would be an expectation of privacy in. The Washington County Sheriff's Department had been contacted. They instructed the constituent to approach the neighbor and inquire, why are there so many cameras pointed directly into their backyard, particularly the area where their minor children are playing. The constituent approached the neighbor, and his simple reply was that was his right to do so. This behavior has continued on for months. Constituent attempted to file a harassment or peace order through our Sheriff's Department, but again, they were informed due to current law, until this man actually harms somebody, there is no recourse that can be taken. Given this information, the family attempted to block their neighbor's camera view by installing metal poles, wooden boards, all around their property line. Some photos we'll go through here soon that we've included. They are uploaded in your testimony as well. They've called the Sheriff's Departments on multiple occasions. Our office reached out not only to the Sheriff's Department, but also our local state's attorney's office. Again, similar responses. There's nothing that can be done until an additional, quote, act has been committed. And to that, we find unacceptable. We understand property owners have a right to place cameras on their property. At the same time, a family has the right to a reasonable expectation of privacy, and this aggressive and intrusive behavior is unwarranted. We understand there may be challenges. The intent here is simply to allow the family to file a peace order so they can get in front of a judge. You can clearly see what is going on here and then adjudicate appropriately. We're obviously not attorneys here. We will defer to the judgment of this committee. We've reached out to legal counsel. We've reached out again to our state's attorneys, our sheriffs. Anyone we've spoken to agrees that this situation is wrong. But again, come back to, well, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. So we come here today seeking a remedy to this situation. As you look on the screen here, this is a picture here of some of the property. So what's highlighted here to the right, the one on the lower, that's actually the property line. The one that's a little higher is one of the cameras on the tree. So it's not like this individual has cameras up on their house where traditionally people have cameras to, make sure no one's getting into their house. They are as far away from their house as possible, looking right into the neighbor's yard. This is said neighbor. He is putting a board in a tree limb with a camera that looks over top of partition boards there, again, to look into the backyard, again, where these two young girls here behind me in their yard. Again, more pictures of the board showing the aggressive manner was moved around. Here's a camera that was lower here at one point, and then as different boards partitions have gone up, they've gone up higher in different areas. So this just kind of gives you an outline of the situation we're dealing with here. Again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here today. We would respectfully ask a favorable report. We are open to amendments of whatever way we need to do to try to, if the language needs to be done a different way. We've spoken to the judiciary about this as well. I know they put a letter of information in there. I just want to make sure it's noted it was an informational purpose. They were kind of deferring back to the legislative branch when we kind of explained the situation that was happening. So that's kind of what we have here. And again, appreciate your guys' time here today and look for a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Did Heather Hannah want to testify as well, or did you?
Sure.
You can come up to the podium. Thank you.
First of all, Thank you for allowing us to come today and to speak. We are in favor of Senate Bill 632 going to law because we have been dealing with a neighbor who has been video surveillancing our property now for over a year with multiple cameras. After talking to police, we found that there was no recourse against this intrusion. Our neighbor built the house on the property that backs our small barn where our 2 children house their 4-H animals. Shortly after he moved in, he placed 3 cameras in a tree line about 5 feet off the property line, facing and pointing directly and deliberately towards our barn. He is able to view them and see our children at the barn, as well as possible hear audio. One camera we know has motion detection because we see a blue light flash when we pass within range. It was obvious these cameras were placed for the sole reason of surveillancing us. We confronted our neighbor about the cameras, but we did not get any indication that they would be coming down. My husband and I decided our best course of action was to block the view of the cameras with plywood and screen material, as you can see here in the pictures. Our neighbor responded by moving the cameras to see around our blockage, forcing us to add more screening. We felt that he was harassing us and our children, yet there was nothing that we could do. Now we no longer send our children to the barn with their animals after dark, and we watch them closely during the day. In talking with others about our issue, we have found that we are not alone in dealing with this similar situation. These people are also found that they have no legal recourse. We understand that almost everyone has security cameras these days, and sometimes they may see a piece of a neighbor's property. This is a clear difference between that and using the cameras for intentionally surveillance against a neighbor. Our story is just one example of why Senate Bill 632 needs to be put into law. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Are there any, all right, Senator McKay.
I messed it up. I apologize. There's only one button to push and I can't push the right one. Senator Quarterman, this is for you, please. I just want to get the record straight because our committee testimony talks about the judiciary and they took an unfavorable position, even though the piece of paper is informational white paper. So I just wanted.
Yeah, we noticed that. We've reached out to them this morning because our understanding was they were just going to not take a position. It would just be informational only because the letter clearly says, well, that's, but how it was uploaded. Yes, we were aware of that and we were looking to rectify that in the House when the cross file goes through.
Okay. I just making sure that my members here in this committee understand it's a white paper, not necessarily unfavorable.
Correct. Yeah. And I appreciate that.
Thank you,
differentiation. So thank you.
See any other questions? I had a question. And again, I'm sorry that you're dealing with that, but how I'm trying to understand how this would even work. I mean, again, from everything that I've heard, when you're outside, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. I mean, you have companies that are going and with their technology and taking pictures of all of us in our backyards. You have governments who are putting cameras up all around the place. What really would this accomplish? I mean, what is it that you're trying? I'm not going to say hide, but what? Because it's not hiding. I understand the whole idea of privacy, but how do you accomplish this?
Well, and I appreciate the question. I think that's the challenge here. It's how do you define reasonable expectation of privacy? What does someone find reasonable? Maybe what you find reasonable may be different from what I find reasonable. But I would think that we could all agree to a certain point that when you have someone who is clearly solely interested in surveilling minor girls in the backyard of someone's property, that's a problem. And I don't know the answer and to your question of how we fix that, but we can't continue to allow that situation to happen. And so again, I'm not the attorney and I would rely on you, my friend, of how we thread that needle. But that's the challenge, because to repeatedly be told by the sheriff's department, the state's attorney's office of, sorry, there's nothing we can do until this person actually does something. We don't want to be in this room again saying what happened to these girls. We don't, nobody wants that. And so I don't know the exact answer to your question, other than I think that's what I would, give to the committee. That's the challenge here of what can we do to allow people to have obviously the right to surveil their own property, to allow people to, as things happen, but at the same time, allow a family, again, how you define
to live in
expectations.
peace.
Yeah, to live in peace and not have some guy moving cameras around over top of boards, put them in trees to watch children play in a backyard. It's not
Let me make
right.
certain I heard you correctly. So when your family put up the boards, he then took his cameras and moved them somewhere else so he could.
Sure.
Yes.
This one's lower. And then he moved it up higher. Here's him moving around. He's got a board in the tree to reach over top of these 2x4s. Hannah, can you explain what those screens are there, I guess?
They are roofing material that my husband put together so that way they're on a pole and they can go up and down with the height wherever he decided to hang it in the tree.
As they move them,
He moved.
he
He
moves them.
moves them.
And a
Yeah,
lot of
none
these
of those plywood boards were there until the cameras went up, and then we just had to start adding blockage.
Yeah, and all these cameras are all the way at the end of the property line. They're not like up against this. I mean, he may have some there too, but this is solely focused on watching
on this family.
Yeah, and it's just, etc. I don't, like I said, that's why we're here, and that's the situation that's been presented and a challenge, and that's where we look to the committee to help provide some guidance. And again, we're open to any suggestions. We're just trying to find a path to allow this family to get in front of a judge. Any reasonable person you talk to, we're out in the hallway having conversations, waiting here. What are you guys here for? You explain the situation. Everybody's like, that's terrible. How could someone be allowed to do that? And that's what we're trying to figure out. We just wanted the opportunity for them to be able to be in front of a judge to present this. The judge can make that determination on a case by case basis. I don't know how that works into the definition of the law per se.
And with your testimony, am I correct in assuming you've spoken with an attorney
I mean, we've spoken to an attorney, a lawyer.
and they couldn't figure out?
So we met, just for the record, we met with the former majority leader who directed us to the peace order, which then got us in touch with some other counsel to help propose this. So we've talked to multiple different councils. We spoke to our state's attorney's office, the sheriff. I mean, everyone's at what do we do? And so that's what we bring to you, my friend. So that's because, again, we can't allow this behavior to continue in this fashion and have the only recourse be, well, until something actually happens. That just, I don't think anyone's comfortable with that. So
I'm trying to think harassment. I'm
Sure.
my mind is going. I'm trying to.
yeah, and we're open to any and all. That's it fell in the peace order. I mean, harassment, whatever. We're open to any tool in the toolbox can be put in there. Again, that allows the ability, I guess, to have a judge take a look at this and make that determination of like, yes, this is clearly aggressive. This is clearly beyond the scope of security, and be able to make that determination to be like, all right, you need to knock this off. So.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much. That will end our. Oh, sure. Thank you. And I think in the system, the judiciary was uploaded as unfavorable when in fact it should have been for information.
Yes, I appreciate you pointing that out. I think Senator McKay said the same thing, and we reached out to them this morning because we've been in contact with them also. They reached out to us a couple of weeks ago when we put this in, trying to figure out what's going on, and we had conversations back and forth with them as well. So I appreciate you noting that. That's this is the challenge. This is what we're trying to figure out. But I have, I know you guys will figure it out. All right.
I appreciate.
I got full
that.
faith in you. All right.
Look, thank y'all very much.
Yes, sir.
That'll end our hearing on Senate Bill 632.